So as far as picking and shaping a topic goes, I initially came into the course researching something or wanting to research something completely different than what I initially picked. But we were given an exercise in the class that said, it asked us, look at the interests that you have and look at some different things that you're doing right now as far as organizations that you're in or the jobs that you have, the communities you're a part of, and use those and kind of brainstorm some ideas. Go find one article from each of these and summarize it, was essentially, find 4 articles and summarize them was the exercise. So what I had decided to do, so I looked up some basic interests that I had, or I looked up some things as far as like writing centers and residence life. And I remembered that week I had a conversation with a student on basic sex ed. I thought, well, that's kind of something interesting, right? Having a freshman student, a homeschool student come to you and ask you about these things. It kind of happens in RA. So I decided to start looking that up of how students in Christian contexts navigate sexuality. And I ended up finding an article through that, and that just kind of led me down this really interesting path that I didn't expect. But at the same time, it was something that was really interesting to me. And then I also had some kind of personal connection too, right? That idea of how do we help our students with these kind of big decisions. So that's kind of how I picked that.
Hi, my name is Julia Champagne. For my 471 advanced research project, I chose to research the letter writing habits of college students. I came about this because I personally love letter writing, and one of the prompts that Dr. Price had was for us to write potential topics that we would like to study, and the one I kept coming back to was letter writing because I had so much interest in it, and because it was something that was very close and personal to me. I thought it'd be really neat to turn that into a big research project so that way I could continually love what I was doing. Another way that I also decided on this was just brainstorming, like Dr. Price encouraged. What is it that you love? What is it that you want to know? What do you actually want to know? That was a question he kept asking, and it helped me realize that what I really wanted to know was learning about letter writing.
I guess this process was really interesting to me because my topic, or several topics that sort of influenced my project, came to me during my part-time job this summer while sweeping. One of my least favorite things in the world to do is sweep, so I would just be sweeping the store when it would be really quiet, and I had all these things kind of running in the back of my head, sort of curiosities that sort of milled around. And my topic came from several of these things, sort of millennial discourse, social media like Tumblr, which was the main focus of my project, and I noticed interesting linguistic things like sarcasm and how people tend to use them differently, specifically millennials and maybe older, younger people. So these sort of topics all were a culmination of just things that I kind of pondered, and as I did research, that sort of helped shape how I was going to frame my project, because it really wasn't based on much else.
So I designed my study to be able to maintain participant anonymity through the whole process. That was something that was really important to me, and that was a goal I wanted to keep for the project because of its content. So what I decided to do was do an online survey and send that to all the RAs on campus and say, send this to your residents, here's this paragraph you can send to them, here's the kind of questions I'm asking them, why I'm asking them these questions, and what I'm hoping their responses will benefit in the future as far as helping them make certain choices and whatnot. And so my goal was that those RAs would then send that paragraph and that link out to their residents, and the residents would take that survey. All in all, that allowed for about 60% of the campus's population to be reached, which was really helpful. So my thought was that I could get a large sample population, but without losing that anonymity that I wanted to keep.
To set up my research project, I began by figuring out the best way to reach the most students I could to get the information I needed. One way I decided was a survey. I decided on a survey because I could easily give it out to other students. They could fill it out in about 10 to 15 minutes, and I could have the physical, quantifiable data in my hands to work with. I'm very much a tactile person. I love to touch my data, mark on it, research with it, look through it. So that's why I decided to use hard copy surveys instead of something online. I created the survey with Dr. Price's help, mainly asking the questions that I wanted to know more about. I chose to leave the questions open-ended and kind of vague and ambiguous to let the students interpret however they wanted to give me a variety of responses. After I figured out the survey and formatted it, which was a pretty simple thing. You can format surveys however you really want to. Mine was a pretty simple lineup. I reviewed it with Dr. Price, and he said it was really good. He pushed back on a lot of my questions, which was good, so I could explain and defend why I was doing it that way. It's always good to know what you're doing and to back it up with responses when asked. Then I went into the classrooms. After getting permission from 3 professors, I emailed them, asked for permission, told them what I was doing. I got permission, went to their classrooms, and handed out the surveys. I ended up surveying 86 students for my project, and then from there I narrowed it down to 25 males and 25 females, and then from there I looked at the individual questions and began to code. It's really cool to use coding, especially for critical discourse analysis. You learn a lot through that, and coding was really helpful with me keeping a tally mark. I had a sheet with all my codes written on it and tallied whenever I found those codes recurring in my data. That was a good way for me to keep up with what I was finding out through my sources.
Like I said, there really wasn't a whole lot of research to base mine off of. There was one really good source that looked at an idea called polymedia, which is where different social media sites function differently. So Facebook is sort of for angry political posts, and Instagram is for outfit of the days, things like that. So I had only one really big source that talked about how Tumblr specifically functioned. So I really had it's terrifying and liberating at the same time to have all this open space. So I sort of looked at a lot of different communication research, looking at sarcasm and irony, multimodal communication, looking into advertising, because I was talking about millennial reactions to a specific group of advertising or sort of products that were portrayed in a gendered way. And so I had a lot of fun looking at all these different multifaceted things, seeing if they fit together, if this topic sort of played nicely with previous research, if it sort of agreed with it or if it diverged with it for some reason. So I had a lot of fun sort of looking at I framed my methodology, my research on looking at what the product was saying, what the millennials were saying, and how they were saying it, and how those things interacted. So